Hello, welcome to our webinar, Identity Theft and Scam Prevention. We are delighted to have Carrie Chun, who is a Better Business Bureau professional trainer in Nashville, and she has done this presentation multiple times, and I'm glad to hear what she has to say and find out how we can all protect ourselves from identity theft. And at this point, I'm going to change the panelists to Carrie Chun.
Good afternoon. It's good to be here. Again, my name is Carrie Chun, and I'm the Regional Manager over Business and Consumer Training and Education for the Better Business Bureau of Middle Tennessee. And through my work, I hear a lot of sad stories of people who have lost their money due to scams and fraud. Every day, con artists bombard the telephones, mailboxes, and email accounts of Americans. And in addition to these newer kinds of fraud, people continue to be victimized by age-old scams such as foreign lotteries, shoddy home improvement work, and investment schemes promising high returns. In many instances, nest eggs are completely wiped out, and Americans' homes are lost due to these crimes. And to compound the problem, many victims are often reluctant to report the crime out of embarrassment, fear of the unknown, or lack of knowledge on how to report it and the appropriate steps to take when one has become a victim. So thank you for joining in on today's webinar. It is my hope that by the end of our time together, you will leave the webinar feeling more equipped to spot and stop a scammer. You and your loved ones work hard for your money, and you deserve to keep it. Knowledge is power, and there are specific things each one of us can do to protect ourselves and our loved ones from becoming victims to these types of crimes. Con artists make their money through deception. They lie, cheat, and fool people into thinking they've happened upon a great deal or some easy money, when they're actually the ones who will be taking the money. If that doesn't work, they will take advantage of our weaknesses like loneliness, insecurities, poor health, or simple ignorance. The only thing more important to a con artist than perfecting a con is perfecting a total lack of conscience. Scam techniques are similar to marketing approaches used by legitimate businesses. Keep this in mind today as we learn about the tactics used by con criminals executing their scams. The difference is that a hard sell from a legitimate business may simply mean you end up buying something you didn't really want or need versus a scam which takes your money and leaves you with nothing. You might think you can spot a con artist because he or she is someone you instinctively don't trust. However, the term con artist is short for confidence artist. The first step a scammer takes is gaining your trust by establishing a connection. A scammer wants to build a relationship with you so you will not question his motivations. A general awareness of scam artist characteristics places each one of us here today in a good position to potentially spot a scammer at the initial point of contact. A scam artist can either be male or female, and they are an expert at looking the part. They try to look and talk like others in the community and get to know people very quickly. They will even physically dress the part and know the terminology they need in order to gain credibility with a person or even an entire group of people. A scammer uses a lot of techniques to make herself look credible. Most of us would agree that it is better to deal with people or individuals in positions of authority. However, keep in mind, credibility can be faked. A scammer might claim to be from a legitimate business and use a fake website, title, resume, business card, or phone number. The scammer provides the information to potential victims to prove that her connection to the trusted business is real. However, I will say it's very easy to set up a phony website or get an unregistered cell phone. The scam artist may look and sound so convincing that the victim doesn't feel the need to check out their real qualifications. That's what's so scary. Keep in mind here, the scammer is not always face-to-face. This particular scam artist characteristic could be also displayed through an email with a stolen logo, for example. Scam artists are typically charming, and persuasive, and they've been known to actually saturate an entire community, like, for example, in a church group. Con criminals have spent months, and in some cases years, with a person or a group of people, learning and building their trust just to set up for the close. Scammers are typically very transient and move from one city to another so they won't be found out. Another characteristic of a scam artist is that they tend to be inventive. At the BBB, it feels sometimes as if they're one step ahead of us at all times. The next characteristic, scam artists utilize social media, and they know how to find out about a person or a business in order to establish a connection. Using social media allows scammers to find a potential hot button issue that may elicit a specific response. Let me give you an example here. They may learn you are single or that your spouse recently passed away, and he or she may use this information in their sales pitch. Take a minute and think about all you can find out about a person online. People call my office all the time and wonder how these people know so much about them. You know, we can find a lot of information about someone on the internet. Scammers do their research. Scam artists also have a tendency to be fast talkers. They don't stop talking because they would give their potential victim time to think and question what they are saying. They don't want this. Scam artists prey upon the desire we all have to get rich quickly and easily, or to help a loved one in need. They use this impulse to overcome the victim's reasoning, telling the victim that he or she must act quickly. Scams are creative and constantly changing. Anytime there is a natural disaster somewhere on Earth, scams will quickly surface. The devastating earthquake in Nepal this last April resulted in an outpouring of prayers and support from around the world. However, before we donate to a charity, we need to do our homework. It is common after a natural disaster like this earthquake to start receiving emails, letters, and Facebook feeds flooded with urgent attempts to collect money for relief. Scammers are especially migrating to Facebook right now, and in many cases gain their credibility by using the trusted names and logos of legitimate charities like the American Red Cross. There are a lot of lookalike organizations, particularly online, who will also morph the website of a legitimate charity. So you think you're giving to a charity, a legitimate charity, when you're actually not. After a tornado devastation or the recent flood devastation in South Carolina, con artists from fly-by-night businesses attempt to make their way into the community offering their so-called services. Con artists come in with drawn phony contracts and reassure the individuals they are working with insurance companies. In the flux of heightened emotions from such a disaster, as well as the urgency homeowners feel, the victims give money to these businesses for deposits, and unfortunately these businesses are never seen again. A few other examples of scam starters would include terrorism and the recent Ebola scare and the numerous attempts to raise money for a cure. We have seen similar scams like this before, especially involving other major health outbreaks. All of the scams have one thing in mind, and that is to cash in on a public health crisis. Investment scams can be branded as green energy, Ponzi, or pyramid schemes. I know we've all heard of these. It seems like everybody's going green these days, even fraudsters. However, the green they are after is your money. Investors are warned about green energy investment scams that dangle the promise of large gains from investing in companies developing or producing alternative, renewable, or waste energy products. Investment scams are not just about stocks and bonds anymore. Fraudsters are innovative. They prey on economically relevant topics and perpetuate their crimes in a variety of ways. Unfortunately, once a regulator has heard about a scam, it's often too late for individuals. We are often asked at the BBB, how bad is the problem or the scope of this scam? And to be honest with you, this is quite impossible to know until the damage has been done. The unknowable factor has to do in part with how grossly unreported the problem is. Think about this and let it sink in. There are estimates of over 50 million lost to investment scams alone each year. As a consumer, you have to do your homework before investing money. So how are these con artists contacting you and your loved ones? I will say scam artists are constantly creating new distribution channels. Maybe you've received an email which starts, "I hope this is your email." Or maybe you recently received a text message instructing you to verify or update banking information with a financial institution where you really actually have an account. Clicking on these links within an email or a text can be very dangerous. In regards to investment scams, individuals are typically invited to a free dinner or seminar. Now remember what I said in the beginning, these are the same tactics used by legitimate businesses as well. So just because you go to a seminar doesn't mean it's a scam. Phone calls are the most common form of contact, especially when the scam targets a senior. And they're simply age-old scams that are simply word of mouth. I want to share with you today some important terms to know when dealing with methods of contact used by a scammer. The first is phishing. Phishing is the activity of defrauding an online account holder or financial information by posing as a legitimate company. Phishing is the attempt to acquire sensitive information, such as your username, password, and credit card details, and it's masqueraded as a trustworthy email in an electronic form of communication. Beware of the links within the content of a suspicious phishing email message. Don't click on it. Rest your mouse on the link without clicking to see if the address matches the link that was typed in the message. The links might actually lead you somewhere and spread malicious software, otherwise known as malware, on your computer. Unfortunately, phishing emails are not the only way people could try and fool you into providing personal information in an effort to steal your identity. Criminals also use the phone to solicit your personal information. The phone version of phishing is sometimes called vishing with a V. Vishing relies on techniques to trick you into providing information over the telephone that others can use to access your important accounts. People can also use this information to pretend to be you or even open new lines of credit. Phishing can be done on a home or a cell phone because of robocalling. The word robocall means telephone calls made using both automated dialing devices and pre-recorded voice messages. So a robocall is when you answer the phone and you find you are listening to a recording. Maybe you've received an automated call from Bob or Card Services or a similar company, and they state they have important news about your credit card interest rate. These calls are placed by machines, which are automatic calling services. They store thousands of numbers and they dial them automatically and play a recorded message. I will say here, many but not all robocalls are illegal under the Federal Telephone Consumer Protection Act. When receiving a robocall or a phishing phone call, do not push buttons and be mindful of the words you speak. For example, be cautious of how saying the word yes or pushing a button 1 or 2 could be authorizing something you did not intend to authorize. The next term is skimming. The act of skimming is when a criminal places an electronic device on an ATM that scoops information from a bank card's magnetic strip whenever the consumer is using the machine. The devices planted on the ATMs are usually undetectable by users. A customer inserts the ATM card into the phony reader and their account information is swiped and stored on a small attached laptop or even a cell phone sent wirelessly nearby. Skimming typically also involves the use of a hidden camera, which is installed nearby the ATM to record the person punching in their PIN number. It's very scary. Skimming can also take place during a legitimate transaction. Think about this. You're at a restaurant, you hand your ATM card to the server, they leave your presence to go run that card. What could be happening? They could be potentially writing down everything they need to know on your card. The next term is smishing. Just like phishing, smishing uses cell phone text messages to lure consumers in. Smishing is short for SMS phishing, or short message, service, text. These messages often seem urgent from your bank or your credit card company. For example, your account has been frozen, and then the message would include instructions to visit a website, and they would actually provide you with a URL link to verify the information. Like phishing, the smishing text message usually asks for your immediate attention. You should not respond to smishing text messages. You should delete them without reading them, since there's also could be a security attachment which could trick you into downloading a virus or malware onto your cellular device. The last term to know is farming. Farming is a scamming practice in which malicious code is installed on a personal computer or a server, misdirecting users to fraudulent websites without their knowledge. A website's traffic is redirected to a fake site. Farming has been called phishing without a lure. Think about it. You're shopping online, you're clicking away, and all of a sudden you're on a website other than where you started. You decide to buy and you enter your credit card information. The end result can be identity theft. So you always want to be sure you're back at the trusted URL site. With the gift-giving season coming upon us, many people will be doing their holiday shopping online. With all of this online shopping, lots of personal information like phone numbers, home addresses, and credit cards will be flying around the internet. This personal data translates to dollars for cyber criminals who are gearing up for the heavy traffic during the online busy Christmas season. Before giving any information to a website when you're about to buy, you should always make sure it is secure. And there are a few tips that you can check if a site is secure. The first is to check the SSL certificate. Look at the URL of the website. If it begins with HTTPS instead of HTTP, it means the site is secured using an SSL certificate. The S stands for secure. SSL certificates secure all of your data as it is passed from your browser to the website server. To get an SSL certificate, the company must go through a validation process. Now, I will say cyber attackers will sometimes create websites that mimic existing websites and try to trick people into purchasing or logging into their phishing site. These sites often look exactly like the existing real website. For example, I like to buy things on Amazon Prime. So a cyber attacker might purchase the domain Amazon.com, but instead of an O in the word Amazon, it would be a 0. And they set up a website location that looks exactly like the true Amazon.com website. And they buy something called a DV certificate, which means a domain validation, which simply validates the owner of the domain and not the legitimacy of the organization. But the fake website tries to trick users by phishing emails or other methods to purchase items or log into their accounts on the mimic phishing site. It's kind of scary. So to avoid these types of attacks, always look at the domain of the server one. If you get an email from your bank or another online vendor, don't click on the email. Type the domain into your browser to make sure you are connecting to the website where you intend to be. This is when anytime you're about to purchase something. So these are the signs you can look for if a company is actually real. The first is a physical address and phone number. If the company lists a physical address and phone number, there's a higher chance that they are a real business. At the Better Business Bureau, we're always telling businesses to be transparent. And any reputable company will list their information so you can contact them if there's a problem. The next is a return policy. Reputable sites should list their return policy as well as their shipping policy. If you can't find these policies on their site, you probably don't want to purchase from them. The next sign is prices are too low to believe. It's great when you find a bargain, but you should be wary of sites that offer products for prices that are far lower than they should be. You end up with knockoff merchandise, stolen goods, or nothing at all. And the last sign if a company is real is there would be a privacy statement. A reputable site should tell you how they protect your information and whether they give your information to third parties. You should make sure a site has a privacy statement and read it before you make a purchase. The definition of a scam is a dishonest scheme, a fraud. The definition of a victim is a person who is cheated or fooled by someone else. Education, gender, income, age, there's really no common characteristics of a scam victim. However, if there were, the following we're going to talk about are some general characteristics of scam victims. Keep in mind, even if you don't fit into one of these following demographics, it doesn't mean you could not become victim to a scam. I first want to point out that senior Americans are the fastest growing segment of the population to be victimized by identity theft and internet schemes. Because of this unfortunate fact, the Better Business Bureau invests a lot of time educating seniors throughout Tennessee about how they can protect themselves. Seniors are commonly targeted in scams since they are most likely to have a nest egg, own their own home, which makes them a target for predatory lenders, and usually they have excellent credit. However, on the flip side, many seniors may be on a fixed income, making them vulnerable to promises of high investment returns or savings on medical care. All of these characteristics make them attractive to con artists. Seniors were generally raised to be polite and trusting, therefore they are less likely to suspect a con artist. Con artists exploit these traits, knowing that it is difficult or impossible for many seniors to say no or just hang up the phone. You know, think about it. Seniors are more likely to be home to answer the phone in the first place or the door. Seniors can often be lonely and susceptible to a friendly pitch of any kind. You know, and it's sad, older Americans are less likely to report a fraud because they don't know who to report it to. They could be too ashamed of having been scammed or don't even realize in some cases that they have been scammed. Seniors may not report their crimes because they're concerned their relatives may think that they no longer have the mental capacity to handle their financial affairs. Seniors are typically more interested in and susceptible to products promising increased cognitive function, physical conditioning, anti-cancer properties, things like that. And in a country where new cures and vaccinations for old diseases are given every American hope for a long and fruitful life, it's really not that unbelievable that a con artist's products can do what they claim. So I would encourage you to check on your senior family members and neighbors. So here's some other categories for victims. Victims of consumer fraud typically are individuals who are easily sold by persuasion tactics. We are going to discuss some persuasion tactics in a few moments. Consumer fraud is when deceptive persuasion practices result in financial or consumer losses in the midst of a seemingly legitimate business transaction. Many people think that consumer fraud only affects unwitting people who are all too willing to be duped. In truth, though, even the most savvy customer can fall victim to consumer fraud. It may be as simple as seemingly innocuous getting stuck paying a higher rate for a magazine subscription, or it may be as devastating as having one's identity stolen. Consumer victims usually don't take preventative measures to protect themselves, like computer virus protection or managing passwords. They are also typically expose themselves to many situations where they'll sign up for drawings and contests. Once again, consumer fraud can take place in person, the telephone, or over the internet. The next circle you'll see is lottery scams. Lottery scam victims are typically single women, unlikely to have a college education, and have an income of less than $50,000 a year. They might be widowed, live alone, or less financially literate and live for today. Investment scam victims are typically married males and are likely to have a college education and be financially literate. These victims actually have an income of over $50,000 typically, and they're willing to take some risk. Victims of investment scams also tend to have a recent change in their financial or health status, and they're more open to persuasion tactics. Like I said a few moments ago, even if you don't fit into one of these demographics, it doesn't mean you could not become victim to a scam. Persuasion is about making emotional decisions, not rational ones. So it doesn't matter how intelligent you are if you're not using your intelligence. That's my deep thought for you today. Scammers want you to make an emotional decision. They use emotions to get victims to make quick decisions before they have time to think. Persuasion is a part of our social norm. We use persuasion every day. I will admit I do anyway, especially with my daughter. Fraudsters, however, take it too far. Scammers use impulse to overcome the victim's reasoning, telling the victim that he or she must act quickly. It is not as important to know the names of these tactics, rather understand the emotions associated with them. Scammers are constantly changing their tactics, but understanding the science behind their techniques will help you protect you and your loved ones against new scams. As I already stated, the first step a scammer takes is gaining your trust and establishing a connection. The first persuasion tactic is phantom riches. This is the classic too good to be true pitch, dangling the prospect of wealth, something you want but you cannot have. Again, scam artists prey upon the desire we all have to get rich quickly or to help a loved one in need. A scammer taps into their victim's greed and takes advantage of many people's belief that there is a secret shortcut to wealth. They convince their victim wealthy people didn't earn their money, instead they know a secret. Remember chain letters? They actually do still circulate, and I have no doubt that some of you have received a chain letter at some point. A chain letter usually contains a chart specifying the massive amounts of money the recipient will receive when they follow the instructions. The first instruction, of course, is always to send money. Multi-level or network marketing schemes work similar to chain letters. We have to do our homework. The victim receives a chart showing the potential for a lot of money when they join the network. After parting with their money, the victim is typically instructed to con their friends and their relatives into joining the network as well. Playing the lottery would also fall under this persuasion tactic, phantom riches. And the odds of winning most lotteries are about the same whether you buy a ticket or not. Keep in mind, we're talking about foreign lotteries here, and they are illegal. These are the kind of lotteries where you have to pay up front for taxes and fees. The phantom riches tactic is also used in business opportunity scams. We know it works because successful scammers actually invest millions to run business opportunity infomercials on the television, and they make millions in profits. Once again, they are preying on people who believe there is a secret shortcut to wealth. Source credibility. This is the next tactic. We already went over examples of this today. As a reminder, this may be face-to-face or individuals using fancy titles and business cards, or it may be an email you receive where a reputable business logo has been stolen and is being used to gain credibility. These days, anyone can call themselves an expert. Don't be fooled. Remember, if everyone is an expert, then no one is. With such a large number of people walking around with professional titles, some of them have to be con artists. The use of the source credibility tactic is on a growing trend in the securities and insurance industry, especially when perpetrated against senior citizens. A financial advisor working for an insurance company will pay a certain amount of money to take a course and obtain an official sounding title, and the course might actually only take a few days or even hours to complete. The advisor then completes the course by taking an exam to obtain a phony title, which in turn they use to trick people into believing they have credentials or expertise when they really do not. The next one is social consensus. Consensus involves getting the prospective victim or consumer to believe that everybody is doing it. If everybody wants it, it must be good. Everybody can't be wrong, so the product or service must be fantastic. Of course, you're smart enough to know that everybody can be wrong. Most everybody thought that Enron was a great investment, and it went bankrupt. Here are some of the examples you might see with the consensus tactic. People are signing up in droves, record sales, unbelievable response, join millions of smart consumers. You combine these headlines with a photograph of a large group of people, and the scammer has a powerful consensus message. Unfortunately, most people are not independent thinkers. We actually tend to act like a herd of cattle. So when we hear, this is how so-and-so got his start, we have a tendency to fall victim to this tactic. The next tactic is reciprocity. This is one of the most powerful persuasion tactics. It's a tactic used in a situation where a scammer is trying to get someone to do something. Reciprocity works like this. You give something of value for free, and in turn, that individual feels an obligation to return the favor. There are simple ways to create sense of obligation to someone. The sense of reciprocity is so strong that in research studies where one person treated people nicely and the other person treated the same people poorly, but gave them something like a can of Coke, these people were more likely to do something for the person who treated them poorly. Wow. It is very likely that when you think of reciprocity, you think of giving someone a thing. It could be a gift, food, something to drink, or some other physical object. But in business and personal situations, giving a physical object creates a sense of obligation to provide something in return. Have you ever received a Christmas present from someone at Christmas and you didn't have anything to give them in return? The next thing you know, you're sneaking around the house looking for something in a closet or a leftover gift. Reciprocity is doing a small favor in return for a big favor. An example of this might be a free dinner if you attend a seminar. Reciprocity is not always bad, but this tactic does play on vulnerability. I will give you a break on my commission if you buy now. The next tactic is scarcity. If something is rare or scarce, it must be more valuable. There is a limited amount of the item available. After all those are gone, the item will no longer be available. Urgency implies scarcity. The effectiveness of the scarcity principle is well demonstrated by the large segment of the population involved in pursuing antiques, collectibles, and memorabilia simply because these items are scarce. This tactic creates a false sense of urgency by claiming limited supply. You need to do this today. We actually have a courier in the neighborhood ready to pick up your check now. The last tactic we'll discuss is fear and intimidation. This is the official ouch tactic, which can threaten of deportation, jail, and in some cases can be as serious as hiring a hitman, either pay or die. This tactic can also take the form of a cold threat. For example, a threat to shut off your utilities in the middle of winter. And I'm sure some of you have heard of this emergency example where you receive a call or a text or an email telling you one of your loved ones, maybe a grandchild, is in desperate need of money and stranded, arrested in another state or a country. In some cases, the scam artist will pretend to be the loved one or a friend of a loved one. This is an example of a scam tactic using fear and intimidation, and the scammer is counting on the fact that emotional decision-making is not often rational. People always ask us at the BBB, what is the latest scam? Unfortunately, there are too many to go over, so we've grouped them into categories. The first category is sweepstakes and lotteries. These types of scams usually follow one of two patterns. Victims get an unsolicited phone call or an email from someone claiming to work for a government agency or some other well-known organization like Publishers Clearinghouse, notifying them that they've won a lot of money. The scammer gains their trust and explains that in order to collect the winnings, they first have to send a small amount of money for processing fees or taxes. They follow the instructions and the victims immediately wire money and they never get their winnings. You never have to pay to win a prize. People fall for this all the time. The next category is emergency situations. Scammers make up an urgent situation, like I said earlier, like I've been arrested or I've been mugged, I'm in the hospital, and they target their friends and family with pleas for help and money. The grandparent scam, that's what it's typically called. Don't believe everything you hear, and be sure to verify the emergency situation before you give any information, and especially before you send money. Another example of this would be a relationship scam. You meet a person online, or it could be in person. Everything seems to be going right. You might be falling in love or becoming good friends, and then all of a sudden they start needing money. They have an emergency situation. They need you to wire them money, and you do so without asking any questions. Remember, you should never wire money to someone you don't know personally, trust, or haven't met in person, even if you have a relationship online. The next category is home improvement scams. Unfortunately, there are home improvement contractors who leave your home worse than they found it. They knock on your door or with a story, something like a roofer who can spot some missing shingles, or a paver with some leftover asphalt, and they're in your neighborhood, and they tell you that they'll give you a great deal. These type of contractors move around, keeping a step ahead of the law and angry customers. So they say they'll give you a deal, you write them a check, and they go out and work for about an hour and do a really bad job, and they're gone. Always check out with the BBB, these companies. If they'll take your money today, they'll take it in a week as well, if they're a legitimate company. The next category is gift cards. As one of the easiest universal gifts, gift cards are always a popular choice during the holiday season. And while a gift card allows you the freedom to let the recipient choose what they want, it also creates a bigger opportunity to fraudsters to take advantage of consumers. Although often overlooked, gift card fraud can happen either when a gift card is purchased or redeemed. So when you're buying a gift card, never buy it online unless you're at the actual site of the store. If you're in the store and you're at the kiosk, you want to buy gift cards that are up front, because scammers have been known to go to kiosks in the backs of stores and write down the numbers on the back of the gift cards and then drain those balances before the holiday season. And they also return stolen merchandise that they resell in some cases. The next category is fake employment opportunities. These are employment scams that start with a too good to be true offer, a work from home and earn thousands of dollars a month, no experience needed, and they end with the consumer out of a job and out of money. Sometimes it's a secret shopper scheme, a work from home scam, or a phony offer of employment. So they ask you to send money to do a background check. You enter all your personal information and fill out the job application, which looks very professional, and there's actually no job after you've wired them money. Be very cautious of offers that claim you can make big money with no experience necessary, and never wire money to secure a job offer. The next category is overpayment and fake check scam. Fraudsters play a role of a buyer and target consumers selling a product or service. This scam has revealed its ugly head in Craigslist. It usually works this way. The buyer accidentally sends you a check for more than the amount they owe you. They ask you to deposit it into your bank account and then wire them the difference. A deposited check can take several days or more to clear. So when the original check turns out to be fake and bounces, the victim is still on the hook to pay for the money withdrawn. Fake checks can also be used for any type of scam, so it's always important to wait for something to deposit and clear before writing a check. The next category is fake sales and rentals. Sales scams are as old as humanity. but the internet has introduced a whole new way to rip people off. For over 100 years, BBB has been advising consumers if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. High-pressure sales tactics, limited time offers, prices that seem too low, all are tip-offs that something may not be quite right. Be especially wary of products that claim to help you lose weight without trying, settle a debt, make you rich, look younger, whatever it may be. Another variation is rental or vacation properties advertised online. Sometimes the property isn't what it looks like in pictures, and sometimes it doesn't even belong to the person who just collected your deposit or rental fee. Scary thought. Way to ruin your vacation. So what are some things you can do to avoid scams? First is know and look for red flags. Never ever react quickly to a request for money. Call other family members to investigate if a loved one is truly in need. Don't be pressured into making fast decisions. If you are presented with a once-in-a-lifetime chance at riches, verify the opportunity. If the deal sounds too good to be true, it most likely is. Use the information we discussed today to identify what really could be going on. The next step is to never reply to requests for personal information. Always verify who the sending party is, and keep in mind your bank or your credit card company would never ever ask for your personal information. They already have it on file. Never enter your personal information in a pop-up screen on the computer or to an unsolicited caller who calls you. Beware of foreign lotteries. The Better Business Bureau urges consumers to be cautious when dealing with foreign lottery solicitations. Consumers should ignore anything to do with foreign lotteries. I'll say it again, they are illegal. And when you purchase a foreign lottery ticket, you open yourselves up to way more scams and becoming a target. They actually place your name and your email address on lists called sucker lists, and they buy and sell these lists all over the world. The next one is check with FINRA before investing money. FINRA stands for Financial Industry Regulatory Authority. FINRA is dedicated to investor protection and market integrity through the effective and efficient regulation of securities industry. FINRA is not part of the government, however, they are an independent, not-for-profit organization authorized by Congress to protect American investors by making sure the industry operates fairly and honestly. Every brokerage firm and broker that does business with the U.S. public must be licensed and registered with FINRA. So you always want to check to make sure if you're moving some money around or doing investments that they are registered with FINRA. You can find out more information about FINRA at finra.org. And the next one would be to always research and contact your BBB. Check out every business you're doing a transaction with by going to the BBB website. Don't follow links in emails or phone calls provided in mailers or on your caller ID. Oftentimes scammers will use a website that's familiar but not exact. Type in the URL yourself. Call the numbers on the back of your credit card. Call the numbers on your bill. Do not use the numbers on unsolicited mail and phone links in email. BBB has business reviews on businesses all throughout Middle Tennessee and throughout North America, and you can check on a business on their report. And also we put out alerts of a business if a scammer's been using a company's good name for disreputable reasons. Understanding why identity theft is bad is very important. A big problem seems to be the fact that identity theft is such a hot topic in the news lately, considering the recent data breaches at places like Target and Home Depot. Consumers appear to be growing a little complacent and desensitized to the issue. but it's very important that we understand how bad identity theft is. We live in an age of zero liability credit and debit cards. Why should people care if their accounts are compromised? They just get their lost funds back, right? Ask this question to yourself. What could an identity thief do with a few pieces of personal information? Well, here's the short list. They could open a checking or savings account. They could gain access to your real accounts that already exist. They could establish lines of credit, change addresses to receive mail, obtain medical treatment, commit crimes, pass background checks, and even steal children's identities. Once a thief has your personal information, they can max out your credit cards, drain your bank account, and ruin your credit rating. Identity theft scams come in all shapes and sizes. Friends or grandchildren stranded in a foreign country, the hotel front desk verifying your credit card in the middle of the night, charity solicitations from groups you've never supported in the past. Many of these thefts, if reported, will not likely cause immediate financial repercussion to the victim. But in the long run, identity theft can affect credit scores, which can result in less than favorable terms on loans, mortgages, and credit accounts. If your identity is stolen and used to rack up thousands of dollars in charges, you probably won't be held accountable for that money, but the damage to your credit report could literally take years to remedy. The practice of stealing identities from deceased people is commonly referred to as ghosting, and this represents a significant threat to our surviving family members. 2.5 million identities are stolen each year from victims who are deceased. Seniors who may have recently lost a spouse can easily become victim to this type of identity theft. And the rate of child ID theft is about 50 times higher than it is for adults. Research has found that 1 out of 10 children has someone using their Social Security number. And it's often something as a parent we don't discover until our kids get credit card applications or letters from the IRS. The Federal Trade Commission recommends parents to check on their children's credit reports every 3 to 4 years. Social media is a great outlet to engage with friends and family, but let me ask you this, are you sharing too much in the process? Identity theft can occur with only a few key pieces of your personal information. And courtesy of social media profiles, that information is easier than ever to steal. For example, an average Facebook profile lists a person's name, date of birth, and their hometown. So already you have provided a thief with crucial information they need to steal your identity. There are many ways to protect your personal information. The first is to keep your financial trash clean so you can avoid dumpster divers. Dumpster divers are very real today. Before tossing out items, shred your items. Review your credit report annually and watch your bank account statements and credit card bills. Monitor each month and contact your financial institution immediately if there's discrepancy in your records or if you notice something suspicious. It's even better to check online regularly than to wait for a monthly statement in the mail. Everyone can request a free copy of their credit report once a month at annualcreditreport.com. And you can do that with the 3 major credit bureaus every year in a 12-month period. The next is to protect your incoming and outgoing mail. Use a locked mailbox or other secure location like a post office box. You want to take your mail out of your mailbox as soon as possible. You never want to write a check and put it in your mailbox and put the red flag up. That's just waiting for trouble. If you go on vacation, place your mail on hold. The next step to avoid identity theft is to use caution on the internet and your smartphone and in your email. Again, you never want to provide bank account or personal information in response to an unsolicited email. You want to be checking where those the security on those websites and making sure that your information is on the trusted source. And while your information may be safe in transmission, that's no guarantee that the company will store it securely. You need to make sure what the websites you're purchasing items from say about how your information is safeguarded in their storage. The next is to secure your personal and business information. Be mindful of who's shoulder surfing at the store. They might be looking for you, typing in your PIN. Carry only necessary identification. Don't print your Social Security phone number or driver's license numbers on your checks or keep a list of your passwords on your phone. I know it's hard to keep up with passwords, but that's not where we should be keeping them. As much as possible, memorize your passwords and PIN numbers. Lock up your personal information. Don't leave it in your car or at your office so other people have access to it. So, people are very concerned lately after data breaches about how to protect themselves and their personal identifying information. This is called PII, Personal Identifying Information, after a data breach. PII includes your name, address, social security number, date of birth, or any other information that we can use for identity theft. When a data breach happens, companies often set up separate websites with information for customers. The BBB recommends that consumers always go to a company's main website first and follow links from there. Scammers tend to take advantage of situations like this and set up spoof websites and send phishing emails. So here are some steps for what consumers can do when they are concerned their personal identifying information has been stolen in a data breach. First, do not wait to see what's going to happen. Don't take that approach. You have to act quickly. Breaches involving Social Security numbers have the potential to be far more detrimental to victims, and the damage can be very difficult to repair. Consider taking a preemptive strike by freezing your credit reports. This actually does not impact existing credit cards and financial accounts, but it will create a roadblock for thieves seeking to create fraudulent accounts using your personal information. At a minimum, if you know your Social Security number has been compromised, place a fraud alert on your credit report. While less effective than a freeze, this will provide an extra layer of protection. If the company that had the breach offers free credit monitoring services, definitely take advantage of that. This will alert you to new accounts or inquiries using your Social Security number, and you can act quickly to repair the damage. Vigilance is key. Regularly check your credit reports at annualcreditreport.com for unauthorized charges or other signs of fraud. I will say here that annualcreditreport.com is the only free credit report option authorized by the Federal Trade Commission. I know we see a lot of commercials on TV, so just want to point that out. Expect scammers are going to take advantage of a data breach, and they're going to send out phishing emails and other messages that appear to be from the company with the breach, but they're not. So you always want to make sure you're on the actual company website when you're working through the steps. Financial fraud and scam can have a heavy emotional toll on their victims. The victims' reactions to being victimized are actually resemble those of victims in violent crimes. Understanding the reactions to victims is important when we help them in their emotional recovery. Emotional fraud is a crime of opportunity, much like burglary. You are not to blame for the fraud. No one deserves to be a victim of fraud, and you are certainly not at fault for this crime. The perpetrator is responsible. However, victims often feel as though they should have known better, or they should have done more to prevent it from occurring in the first place. It's important for advocates to stress that the blame for the crime belongs to the perpetrator, not the victim. Financial fraud amounts to billions of dollars lost every year. For individual victims, the cost can be devastating. In addition to losing significant sources of income and equity, victims often must spend months sorting through confusing reports, reporting requirements, and dealing with financial institutions simply to stop the fraud from continuing. This is a strain for any individual. So you can imagine how even more difficult it is for a senior who may be struggling with this type of recovery. And after dealing with all of the requirements necessary for reporting such a crime, a person's financial recovery may be limited or even impossible in the end. And we as advocates can help manage the expectations of victims in relation to financial recovery. Victims need to understand that although recovery of lost assets may not be possible, they can take back control of their lives and their financial future and put an end to the trauma and stress of being victimized. If you have observed a scam or been a victim of a scam, it's important that you report it to the appropriate agencies. If you don't know where specifically to report a crime of this type, you can always call your local BBB to inform them of the scam, and the BBB can lead you in the appropriate direction to let other agencies know what has happened. This is, we're only as good as the information we get. And I understand why people don't want to report these crimes, but it's so very important to do that so the appropriate agencies can track and investigate and try to put a stop to these types of crimes. The mission of the BBB is to promote and foster an ethical marketplace where buyers and sellers can trust each other. We were founded in 1912, and we're an independent, not-for-profit business-supported organization. BBB is focused on advancing marketplace trust, and we are the most respected source for marketplace information in Middle Tennessee. If you are not using your local BBB, I want to ask you today, why are you not using it? People today are overwhelmed with choices, and they are often unsure where to find verified, unbiased information. Did you know there are more than 30 million businesses in North America alone, and hundreds of thousands of sites around the world where people shop online? Wow, that's a lot of businesses. BBB is the one place you can find it all, and BBB is helping people to make smarter decisions and is evolving as the marketplace changes. So look at this wheel here of all you can do to utilize your BBB. The first, you can look up a business and look at their business review, which would go over their complaint history, their information, government actions, who the business owner is, their rating. You can go to customer reviews and read actual customer verified reviews to see what consumers are saying about the business. If you have a question, a specific industry question, we have thousands of industry lists. So for example, you might want to know how reverse mortgage works. You could call the BBB and we could go over that information with you and give you red flags to look for. The next is dispute resolution. Maybe you have you want to file a complaint or work through a dispute with the business, and the BBB can serve as a neutral third party between the business and the consumer. We also review advertising throughout Middle Tennessee. And then also you can check on charities throughout Middle Tennessee by looking at their wise giving reports to make sure that the money you give is actually going to the cause of, of what you're actually wanting to give the money to. So I hope you start using the BBB if you're not, and you feel a little bit more equipped to spot and stop a scammer and know some simple techniques that you can use to prevent identity theft and scams from happening to you or a loved one. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day today. I appreciate all the work you do as educators throughout Tennessee.
You'll note the screen right here. You see the contact information for our Middle Tennessee headquarters. Please contact your Better Business Bureau should you have any further questions. Thank you and have a good day.